Welcome back, travelers from near and far. I'm your host and storyteller for this evening, Timothy Magic. Please make yourself comfortable and join me for a wondrous tale. Tonight I will be sharing with you a story from Norse folklore. The people of Scandinavia traveled far and wide, and many of these tales have different interpretations or tellings. But if this is your first time hearing these words, I hope you will enjoy. With that I bring you Loki's Children and the Binding of Fenrir. The mother of Sleipnir was also the father of 3 appalling children. Not content with his faithful wife Sigyn, Loki sometimes took off for Jotunheim. The long-legged god hurried east and spent days and nights on end with the giantess Agrabada. Loki and Agrabada had 3 monstrous offspring. The eldest was the wolf Fenrir. The second was Jormungand, greatest of serpents. The third was a daughter called Hel. Even in a crowd of 1,000 women, Hel's looks were quite likely to single her out. Her face and neck and shoulders and breasts and arms and back, they were all pink. But from her hips down, every inch of Hel's skin looked decayed and greenish black. Her expression was always the same, gloomy and grim. When the gods heard that the father of lies had also fathered these children, they were all filled with alarm. They discussed what to do about them at the Well of Erd, and the 3 Norns gave them little encouragement. "Their mother is evil," said "but their father is worse," Verdandi said. "Expect nothing from them but the worst," said Skuld. "Expect them to harm you and endanger you. They will be in at the kill." And so the gods agreed that Loki's children must be captured. At Odin's behest, a group of gods crossed into Jotunheim by night. They burst into Agrabada's hall, gagged and bound her before she could even rub her eyes. Then they kidnapped her children and carried them back to Asgard. Odin was in no doubt what should be done with the serpent. He picked up Jormungand and hurled him into the ocean surrounding Midgard, the world of men. He hurtled through the air, smashing through the iron face of the water, and sank to the bottom of the sea. There he lived and grew and grew. Jormungand, the Midgard serpent, grew so thick and so long that he encircled the world and bit his own tail. Odin was just as sure what to do with the serpent's sister. He took one look at Hel and hurled her out of Asgard too. He threw her into the mists and darkness of Niflheim, the world beneath the worlds. And as she fell, she heard Odin's decree that she should look after the dead, all those in the 9 worlds who died of illness or of old age. The condition being she should share out whatever food she had with whoever came to her. Hel made herself right at home. Beyond the sheer rock, drop of destruction, she built huge walls around her estate. Her hall, Ilgenir, home of the dead, lay within, behind a massive pair of gates. Hel's manservant and maidservant, Ganglati and Ganglot, moved about so slowly it was not easy to tell whether they were moving at all. Her plate was called Hunger, and her knife Famine. Her bed was Sickbed, and the bed hangings glimmering Misfortune. Odin thought it would be best if the gods themselves kept an eye on Fenrir. He seemed no different than any other wolf, and all the gods agreed that there would be no harm in letting him roam about the green and golden fields of Asgard. Even so, of all the gods, only Tyr, son of Odin, was brave enough to face Fenrir alone, and give him great joints, flesh and gristle and bone, to keep him quiet. The gods were not slow to change their minds about Fenrir when they saw him growing larger day by day, and when Erd, Skuld, and Verdandi renewed their warnings, and said that the wolf would cause Odin's death, their alarm became far greater. They agreed that since they could not kill the wolf then and there, and stain the sanctuary of Asgard with his evil blood, they must catch and fetter him. Then the gods made a powerful chain of iron links and called it lading. Several of them went up to Fenrir, showed him the chain, and asked, "Are you as strong as this?" The wolf inspected lading. "It's certainly strong, but I'm certainly stronger," was all he had to say, as he let the gods wind the chain round his neck and body and legs, until there was only a small length left for them to hold on to. "Finished," snarled the wolf. He planted his massive paws well apart, filled his lungs with air, then flexed every muscle of his body. Leiding's links at once sprang apart, and the gods sprang back alarmed. The gods lost no time in making another chain. They called it Dromi, and it was twice as strong as Leiding. The links were larger than those of the largest anchor chain. No man could have moved them. "If you break this chain," the gods told Fenrir, "you will be known for your strength throughout the 9 worlds." Fenrir looked at Dromi. He thought it looked immensely strong. But then he thought he too had grown even stronger since he had snapped Leiding. "No one wins fame without risk," was all he had to say as the gods wound the vast chain around his neck, body, and legs. "Finished," snarled the wolf. He shook so that there was a terrible clinking and clacking and grating. He rolled over and arched his back, and banged the chain against the ground. He tightened his muscles until they were as hard as the iron links of Dromi. He stood up again and dug his paws into the earth and strained, and all at once, Dromi snapped. It shattered into hundreds of separate links. The shrapnel flew in every direction. After this, the gods were frightened. They thought they might fail to fetter Fenrir. "But if anyone can make a fetter that will not break," Odin said, "the dwarfs can." And he sent off bright Skirnir, Freyr's messenger, to the world of the Dark Elves, Svartalfheim. Skirnir went down under Midgard through the gloomy, dank, twilit grottos. There he found Gnar, and Nain, and Nippin, and Dane, and Bifur, and Bafur, and Bombor, and Nori, and hundreds of others, each one as horrible as the next, and promised them gold and more gold if they could make a fetter for Fenrir. In the gloom, the dwarfs' eyes gleamed like glowworms. They whispered and schemed and set to work. They made a fetter as smooth and supple as a silk ribbon, and called it Gleipnir. When he returned to Asgard, Skirnir was thanked by all the gods for going on this mission. "But what is it made of?" asked Odin, examining the fetter. 6 things, said Skirnir. "The sound the cat makes when it moves, a woman's beard, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and a bird's spittle." The gods were both astonished and skeptical of Gleipnir's power. "If you doubt it, as I doubted it," said Skirnir, "remember the cunning of the dwarfs. After all, have you ever thought why a cat makes no noise when it moves, and why a woman has no beard? You can never prove a mountain has no roots, but many things that seem not to exist are simply in the dwarfs' safekeeping." Then a large group of gods approached Fenrir for a 3rd time. They invited him to go out to the island of Lingivi, in the middle of Lake Amstafatir. The gods produced the silken ribbon of Gleipnir. They showed it to Fenrir and challenged him to test his strength against it. "It's a little stronger than it seems," said one. "It's as well woven as the words of a good poem," said another. "But you, Fenrir, you'll be able to break it." The wolf looked at Gleipnir. "This ribbon is so slender," he said, "that I'd win no fame in snapping it." He eyed Gleipnir again. "If, on the other hand, cunning and magic hath gone into its making, then slender as it looks, you can keep it for yourselves. I am not having it round about my legs." "Before this," said one god, "you pried apart massive iron fetters. You'll have no bother with this band. And if by any chance you are unable to break it," said another, "we'll set you free again. You can trust us." Fenrir showed his teeth, and the gods did not like the look of them. "If you're able to fetter me," he snarled, "it'll be a long time before I can hope for any help from you." Fenrir prowled right around the group of gods. "I do not want to be bound with that ribbon, but neither do I want to be accused of cowardness. So while the others bind me, let one of you put his hand in my mouth as a token of good faith." Tyr looked one by one at the gods in his company. All the gods looked at each other and said nothing, wondering what to do. Then Tyr slowly lifted his right arm and put his hand in Fenrir's mouth. At once, the other gods wound Gleipnir round and round the wolf's neck, body, and legs, until it was all used up. Fenrir began to struggle against it. He tried to kick and shrug and shake and jerk and roll, but the more he strained, the tighter Gleipnir became. Then Fenrir snarled and clamped his teeth. Tyr, bravest of the gods, twisted and cried out, unable to bear such pain. The other gods laughed. They knew that Fenrir was bound at last. They all laughed except Tyr. He lost his hand. The gods fixed a large chain to the end of the silken ribbon, then passed the end of the chain through a hole in a large boulder, and secured it back onto itself. The gods drove the boulder a mile down into the earth. Then they found the vast rock Taviti, and bound the wolf to it. Fenrir shook and wrestled. He grated his teeth and gulped and opened his blood-stained jaws immensely wide. Then one of the gods drew his sword. He drove the point hard into the roof of Fenrir's mouth, and rammed the hilt against the lower jaw. The wolf was gagged. Fenrir was gagged, and Fenrir was bound. His howls were terrible. His saliva streamed from his jaws. It ran from the middle of the island into the lake of Amsvatnir, and was called Von, the river of expectation. And just as the Midgard serpent waits at the bottom of the ocean, coiled round the world, just as Hel waits in Niflheim, surrounded by corpses and swirling death mist, so, gagged and bound on Engivi, Fenrir lies and waits for Ragnarok. Thank you for joining me this evening. I've collected these tales from my local library and Project Gutenberg. A pathway to the vast collections of stories from around the world can be found below. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's reading. If you have, kindly let other travelers know where they may relax and enjoy a good story. I hope to see you again soon, good wayfarer. Until then, may your journey be a safe one.